Welcome back, boys and girls, to another episode of Kayfabe Comparisons. My name is Mr. Know-It-All, Daniel John Schaefer, and today I am joined once again by Mr. Jesse Baker. Jesse, how you doing, bro?
Dude, I'm doing great. It's good to be back this week. Got trapped in the work vortex last week, and unfortunately, we're missing the third man in the booth this week. He's got a little achy breaky going on, but you know, we'll do well without him. How you doing this week, man?
Hey, man, I'm staying alive. I'm staying busy. I'm staying thick into the wrestling goodness here and the wrestling badness, as we will definitely talk about on this show.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, big shout out to Mr. Wex with the laryngitis or whatever it is he's got. Hope he gets over that quickly, and we will be happy to see him back next week. But man, there's been a few things that have happened over, this past week we got to touch on. We record this show, guys, like on a Tuesday, so it sucks because we're like 10 days late on AEW stuff. But Malachi Black, man, like, damn, that whole show too, by the way, like that whole Dynamite. What do you think about that?
I gotta say, they really knocked it out of the park with the entire card. I thought the feel of the show, I mean, a lot of it is being back on the road, and that crowd is just so rabid. I mean, that's one of the big pluses AEW really has. WWE crowds are never going to be timid. Everybody's always going to be hyped. But the AEW thing, that passion is just a different level. I hope it maintains.
Yeah, I agree.
WWE doesn't have the option, in my opinion, of debuting anybody with the type of fervor and the type of impact in the way that AEW got to with Malachi Black. So, like,
right. And
that's because of WWE, honestly.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but honestly, I feel like it's benefiting. I think it's benefiting both sides. And honestly, I know a couple of weeks ago we had talked about how Vince, he might be gearing up to sell. I think that's kind of shifted. I think that mentality is like, he's like, you know what? Like, let's have the competition. The competition is going to make us bigger. It's going to make the business bigger. Let's cut some of these guys that we don't need. Let them go. Let them go learn a hold. I mean, because honestly, when the jumps, and they will happen, when the jumps eventually do happen from AEW back to WWE, or from, like, let's say like a Hangman, who knows, 4 or 5 years down the line, signs with WWE, that's going to be massive, So yeah, I think Vince is ahead of the curve. I think he's like, you know what? Let's trim a little bit of this, even some good talent. Let's get the competition going back and forth. I think he likes a fight, so I'm into it for sure. Another sad note this week, though, we did lose Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, a big part of my childhood as a 36-year-old growing up with the 80s and the Hulkamania. Really bummed to see that guy go.
I mean, main evented the very first WrestleMania alongside Roddy Piper and against Mr. Hogan and Mr. T. Paul Orndorff, undoubtedly a wrestling legend. Definitely kind of the captain of that team of heels that Hogan had to go against for a very long time.
For sure, yeah. Him and Piper, yeah.
Dude, 100%. And continued to be relevant throughout a very long tenure in WCW. And I know he had some health issues pretty early on, like his arm atrophied and stuff.
Yeah.
But he's always one of those guys that you really don't hear a lot of people talk shit on him about his backstage presence or his efforts or anything. Like, he's gotten in some skirmishes, but everybody's like, yeah, I don't know if you fuck with Mr. Wonderful, even with that arm.
Yeah. He's
very
just a tough guy.
Sad to hear.
It is sad to hear. And I guarantee you some of the show and some of the shit that we're going to cover on this show is going to be sad to hear as well. So we're going to jump right into it. It is a 20-year comparison, but 30 years ago was WCW's Great American Bash from 1991. That feels weird to say, by the way, that the 90s were 30 years ago. That just feels really awkward to say. And then we have that going up against WWF Invasion 2001. I'm pretty excited about it. What made you choose these two, Mr. Bookerman Jesse?
I mean, number one, I just have such fond memories of Invasion. That area of time, there was so much buzz in the air about finally seeing these WWF and WCW cats come together. And, it didn't quite go down as any of us imagined it would.
Right.
But even with the talent that was involved, even without the big names, it still kind of was loopy, and we'll get into some of that. But it's funny because Great American Bash 91 is a very significant show. It's the first WCW pay-per-view without Ric Flair. They had 14 days earlier, they had decided they were going to cut him loose and let him go up north, which is virtually unfathomable in this day and age with a name talent like that. But then you look at the similarities of, hey, we got to build these stars. We got to use these undercard guys, and a lot of it's going to be gimmicks. And sometimes the heel-face dynamics aren't going to match up. We see a lot of that in both shows. So it is kind of interesting to see how the companies are trying to amalgamize and adapt and get used to one another. And I look forward to getting into it.
Let's get after it then, man. We're going to jump on our way back machine, go to 1991. It's the Great American Bash. We got a weird open of people like coming in and like this awkward redneck just keep saying like, enjoy yourself. Oh, enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. That was like I literally heard him say it like a dozen times. And I was like, this is weird. Yeah. Weird open. And the first match is even weirder. It's PN News and Bobby Eaton versus Stunning Steve and Terrence Taylor. Jesse, take it away, buddy. Tell me about the scaffold match.
I mean, look at the talent involved in this fucking
of course.
Thing. And like how dumb it is to start this show off with a fucking scaffold match with these people in it. I just don't. It's such a Southern concept, and you're in Baltimore. You've lost the Crockett thing. You shook it loose. If anything, now that you've lost Flair, you would think they'd want to be like, all right, let's try and adapt to the market.
Yeah.
And I really feel like the whole reason for the booking is to put a fat guy on the scaffold. I mean, they had that capture the flag stip to get out of the danger element and stuff, and that's just kind of one of those things. I gave it a beer and a half only because none of these guys wanted to do this.
That's fair.
Eaton was the only one with experience, and he kind of helped carry it. And you look at PN News, and he looks like he's just about to use the bathroom everywhere. He definitely did not want to be on top of it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, the fear was there for sure. It's not really the fault of the talent. It's just shitty booking at its best. I will say commentary did their damnedest. Good old JR and Tony in the same booth. They did their damnedest to try to make this work. But I only gave it a half a beer for the effort, man. I mean, not on the talent, just awful booking. So let's jump to compare that to the opening segment for WWF Invasion 2001. I thought it was a badass open. I mean, it's 2001, so of course it's pretty badass. And then the Landstorm opening the show on the mic for like all of 5 seconds. I was like, I thought it was a pretty good call. The crowd was hyped. They were behind it. And the match here is going to be Landstorm and Mike Awesome versus Edge and Christian. What do you think about this tag match here?
I got to say about the open, something that I noted as I was just putting notes together. Not only is this open on fire, you got JR and Cole, still no Jerry Lawler. We're just on the cusp of him coming back.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that to this day, this pay-per-view holds the record for the non-WrestleMania pay-per-view buy rates at around 770,000.
Yeah.
And that was insane then, and it's even more insane to me now. But it's
yeah, absolutely.
You could see in the crowd the electricity here, and they did treat the Storm thing right. Storm and Awesome, Edge and Christian. You got 4 hyper-talented guys. At this point in time, I thought, dude, they're fine. Like Landstorm and Mike Awesome, 2 of my favorite guys that I've watched kind of come up in ECW and stuff. Definitely going to get a chance here where they sort of got burned a little in WCW. Eventually, we would learn that was not the case. But all these guys are heel here. I mean, Edge and Christian have been heels for a year going into this fucking thing. Obviously, they're trying to make Alliance heel, so Storm and Awesome are heel by default. The crowd kind of couldn't get invested, but they were hyped for the work. I had to give it 3.5. It's a fucking difficult task to open like a show like this. They put the work in. It was just no one really was invested in who won and who lost.
Dude, I got to tell you right now, this is my honorable mention for match of the night. I was pleasantly surprised by it. It's rare that we because I was apprehensive in the beginning naturally. And so to watch it, to have them beat my apprehension as a mark that has a podcast of 2 years where all I do is bitch about matches. These guys did a great job. I mean, Christian almost busted his ass in that dive spot, but overall the match was really good. I mean, better than anything else on the Great American Bash show, honestly. But yeah. I thought it was pretty good, man. Some great false finishes in there too. The crowd was eating out of the palm of their hand. I gave it 4 beers. Loved it to death. Let's jump back over here to Great American Bash though and keep it rolling. We got Bischoff in the back with Paul E and Arn. Thought that was kind of funny. We're going to get to that match though later on. Then Ross and Shivani kind of break down the rest of the card, and that was a cool little tidbit. A little too long though for sure, and that kind of seemed to ring through the rest of the night. DDP brings in a girl from the crowd, quote unquote, to rip off Hall's pants, and that made me pop. That made me pop. The next match here though is the Diamond Stud versus the Z-Man. What can you tell me about this one, man?
So what I got to say about the stuff leading into it, dude, Tony Schiavone looks straight up like a backup singer for the Oak Ridge Boys in this motherfucker. And he couldn't stop blinking the entire time. I was losing my shit watching this back. But Diamond Stud this era is basically Razor Ramon already. I mean, it was almost all the way there. It was funny to me because him and they had such a similar stature. Really, the only difference was the chest hair. Like they just kind of, other than that, they sort of were about the same build and the same type of looking dude. The match in and of itself was kind of inconsequential. It was pretty much all entrance. And the commentary was really having a rough time with this one. Nobody really knew, like, what do we do here? I thought the match was whack. I gave it 1 beer.
Yeah, I mean, it's an 80s style match. I thought the work rate was decent, but it was just slower than it needed to be. And honestly, I don't think Tom Zink's ever really been known as a technician. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't good either. I gave it 1.5 beers. So let's hop back over here to Invasion. Roll right on to the Regal and McMahon segment in the back, which was good, of course. Mm-hmm. And then we get a spot for Nick Patrick and Earl Hebner. And you know what? I loved it then. I love it now. It's kind of the best gaga for a mark. Like, and I'm going to take it away here. It's Earl Hebner versus Nick Patrick. Mick Foley as a referee. Patrick earned his damn roster spot in this match. Like, it's pretty much Nick Patrick leading Earl Hebner, which is kind of funny watching it back now. But dude, I mean, I don't know, man. I really enjoyed this. I love that the refs got the other refs involved. Like there was enough going on, and it wasn't too long to where it really wasn't bad for what it was, for the spectacle that it was. I thought it was really well booked. And then the post match, like Sacco, solid 3 beers right in the middle. Can't give it more, can't give it less though. 3 beers for me. What'd you think about Earl Hebner versus Nick Patrick?
We're not on the same page finally. So this show obviously needed some extra star power. Rock's out, Triple H is out. You got a bunch of brand new fucking WCW guys. You didn't bring any of the ones anybody wanted to see, really. Yeah. And so here comes Mick Foley yet again, save the day. And I love it. I think it's a great use of his time, and we'll see him again on the same show. I don't disagree with most of what you said, and the work for 2 referees really wasn't that bad. It was decent gaga. I just really wish it hadn't been the second match on the show. I really think that the placement on the card, it like stole the thunder of that opening match. It wasn't followed by something that anybody needed their palate cleansed for. I just really felt like they could have moved it a little bit down the card and kind of like helped separate some stuff.
Yeah. Okay, I could agree with that.
Looking at the rest of the card, fucking maybe not. But I only gave it 1/2 beer, and pretty much it's all that. It's all the placement thing. I mean,
yeah, I hear you. I loved it, man. I mean, honestly, it could have opened. It could have closed the damn show. I would have loved it. I thought it was hilarious. Let's move on here to Oz versus Ron Simmons. Oh, God. It's kind of crazy that Hall and Nash are back in WCW at this point, like in just 5 years from then. And at this same show, 5 years later, they're putting Bischoff through a table and becoming one of the biggest storylines in the history of professional wrestling. But, man, this match was bad. It was worse than the last one on this show. Too long. It was worse than Diamond Stud versus Tom Zink. It was only a beer from me, and you could tell that both guys really wanted to have a good match. Like, the effort was there, but there's no, like, they don't have chemistry either. Like, they're both good workers in their own right. Well, I mean, at least Ron Simmons is, and we know that Kevin Nash can have a good match if he's got a really good dance partner. But, yeah, I give it a beer. That's all it was for me. What do you think about Oz and Ron Simmons here?
I mean, this is just another classic example of WCW's motif at the time, that entrance is everything. I mean, that was what the whole fucking deal was about. And I'm like, you wasted a guy like Kevin Nash in this whole fucking under a hood thing that was just goofy. But I will say, watching Kevin Nash bump as many times as he did in this match had me rolling on the fucking floor. Like,
he's trying to earn his money, man.
That part of it was great. And then that whole sequence where they tried to get him over the rope 3 different fucking times, and it just kept on just failing. And I did not look like that shit was on purpose to me. It just looked like it was botched. I don't know if it was. Yeah. Whatever. Sure. I gave it a beer and a half, basically, because both guys did work hard. But honestly, it was a comedy match for 2 guys who definitely are worth way more than a comedy match.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that assessment for sure. Let's keep it pumping and rolling here, though. We got a commercial for the very first ever Tough Enough, and that popped me. It's nice to see. Then we got a promo for DDP, Sarah, and Deborah. Wow. This is like the best, worst WWF pay-per-view ever, if that makes sense. It's like the best and worst ever. And we're just going to keep it rolling. We got a package for O'Hare and Palumbo versus the APA here. Yeah, honestly, if you literally just swap these 2 matches even. Like, if you just put APA in, but I guess they just didn't want to put 2 tag matches back to back. Maybe that's what it was. But yeah, for me, man, it was a high energy match. Very much a brawl with a couple of high spots. Nice little mid-card thing. Not a show stealer, but certainly not a bad match. I gave it 2.5 beers. Didn't hate it. Didn't love it. Right there in the middle. What'd you think about OPA? O'Hare and Palumbo versus APA.
I might just have my harsh pants on today, man, but I gave it half a beer, and here's why.
Okay.
Palumbo and O'Hare coming into this thing had all the potential in the world in my eyes. And
they had a lot of heat, too.
You really, really couldn't have buried them easier than putting them in with two guys like the APA, letting them get absolutely zero of their shit in. And just, I mean, if you want to bring out the green on these guys, this is the easiest way on earth to do it.
Yeah.
Putting them over would have been easier. It would have made more sense in the long run, in my opinion. I kind of felt like it was a waste of time. And this match is the start of a continuing problem on a lot of this card for me, which is you have two champions, the WWF Tag Team Champions, the WCW Tag Team Champions, and neither title is on the line. What the fuck is the point of that?
No, so, I agree.
Half a beer.
I agree. I mean, for me, yeah, it just wasn't I don't know. It wasn't the worst though. I didn't feel like it was a bad match. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with you. I don't necessarily think it was a terrible match. I just think that, like, God, it's just something about that wasted potential. And a part of that is me looking back on it, how stoked I was to go into this show. And I'm like, what these guys could have done if they didn't just get buried in the onset. And I mean, the whole time WWF was doing that throughout this whole card. I mean, they engendered it where the Alliance were heels and WWF were supposed to be the good guys. And I'm not saying that that was the wrong thing to do. It's just hard to enhance talent under that regime.
Right. No, yeah, I get that. Well, let's keep it rolling here. Let's bounce back over to Great American Bash. We got a nice little WCW top 10 rankings.
I love it.
Okay, JR.
Yeah.
100%. That's all JR is doing.
Oh yeah.
But I liked it too. It didn't bother me at all. I liked the rundown of it. But the next match on the card here is Richard Morton versus Robert Gibson. I mean, the ring work was good, but Morton is not a heel. It was very, very long. Again, the work was okay. It just never felt right. Didn't like it. 2.5, like 2 beers total for me. Where were you on Morton versus Gibson here?
First of all, I thought it was hilarious that Richard Morton is just wearing the exact same fucking gear. And so it's like they're still in their same tag gear. It's like you could have changed up the tights a little bit, buddy. Like that might have made it a little bit better. I honestly think that if this match had been in Greensboro, or if this match had been in St. Louis, if this match had been in Georgia, that this could have been a match of the night contender. I think a lot of what took it away was that it was in Baltimore, and Baltimore, honestly, at this point, still was just not that invested in Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
So, but I do think the work was great. And of course the work was great. These guys know each other better than two men probably ever have any business knowing one another. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it's going to go. There's a quote unquote karate kick at one point that fucking had me laughing. But I gave it 3.5, man. I thought the match was really good. It was too long for what it was. And it was in the wrong fucking town. But I did think the match itself was really great.
I thought the work rate was really good, but the crowd was dead as a doornail for sure. Absolutely. And it was so long. Like, I was just like, man, this is not the right place to do this kind of blow off. Didn't really get the rating from me, but let's keep it rolling here on Invasion. The next match on the card is going to be X-Pock versus Billy Kidman. It's the WWF Light Heavyweight Champion versus the WCW Cruiserweight Champion. I mean, come on, y'all. Both dudes are pretty much in their prime. It's 2001. Incredible work rate. I thought this match would hold up on NXT or AEW today. I thought it was a really good match, better than it should have been. The crowd was hot for it. Good, clean finish. 4 beers. Loved this match. Thought it was really good. Where were you at, X-Pac versus Billy Kidman?
So I'm almost there with you. I gave it 3.5. I agree with everything that you said, but again, this team angle bullshit got so far in the way of this because of Billy Kidman being Alliance and X-Pac being WWF. X-Pac, I think we can all agree, is naturally at his best as a heel. Billy 100%. Kidman is naturally at his best as a face, even though everybody hates him because he fucked Tori Wilson. But it's just one of those things that the match itself was great, but again, the crowd is just pulled 2 different directions because no way that they feel like they're supposed to go makes any fucking sense. Right. We would, eventually in this card, we see that transcend, and it won't matter. They do what naturally makes sense as opposed to where the story's going. But I just wish there had been slightly more organic booking. Cannot argue with the bell-to-bell work. The crowd popped like a motherfucker for the shooting star press.
Yeah.
I really feel like if they had let Kidman go into this as the face, they would have had the opportunity to get him over and get a lot more out of him. But yeah, 3.5 for me.
Yeah, I was 4 beers on the work, and I thought it was actually pretty decent because I feel like it's 2001, so I honestly feel like Kidman almost was like channeling that RVD kind of vibe where like he's the heel, but he's getting the cheers. I mean, to me, they were still doing the X-Pock suck chants. So like, yeah. I think you're right. Like they should have pushed him more as a face moving forward, or at least like the 2001 version of a face, which is just like a cool heel essentially.
Yeah.
They could have, if they would have just let him keep doing that, I think that might have benefited him. But that's neither here nor there.
Yet again, 2 titles, neither one on the line. You really could have swayed that part of it by putting one of the belts on the other guy too. Like if Kidman had walked away with both of those straps, then you would have had it set up.
I agree. I think that would have been fantastic. Yeah, I agree. And honestly too, especially considering how WWF like was using their quote unquote light heavyweight division, it would have made more sense totally and probably put more value to just unify the titles at this show.
Oh, yeah. Because it wasn't long after when they did.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure they did it on like a Raw or a SmackDown. I'm almost positive it happened on a television show, but
I think so.
Whatever. Anyway, the next match on the Great American Bash card is the Young Pistols and Dustin Rhodes, which Dustin is doing like his best Dusty impersonation on the promo, which is real yikes.
Yep.
But yeah, it's against the Freebirds and Bad Street, which is Brad Armstrong under a hood. So. For the WCW 6-man tag team championship, the United States championships, by the way. Like, that's what's so weird to me. Okay, it's the 6-man tag team championships, right? But it's not world championships. It's the 6-man United States championship.
So I thought it was just the United States tag team championships. But no, I must have missed the 6-man part.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Like, what is happening here? Like, I don't know. It was crazy.
You should bring it, dude.
Oh, God, way too much strutting. I don't know. The fact that WCW even had these titles is just crazy to me. Too long, not for me. I gave it a half a beer. Where are you at on the Freebirds and Bad Street versus Young Pistols and Dustin Rhodes?
I do agree too long, although I can see why on paper, because the Young Pistols were one of the hottest acts in the company, even though they constantly got they never won matches really, but they were super fucking over. And then Freebirds were one of WCW's staples whenever they could stay in the company long enough to be. Crowds fucking popped. Like the crowd was into this. They were super into everybody that walked out. I really felt like Dustin, you could see here that like he had that confidence of daddy having the book a little bit. He was working kind of stiffer than everybody. Like somebody told him like, go get over, baby. And like that was the whole idea. I obviously love Hayes. I think Garvin is criminally underrated. Tracy Smothers is one of my favorite fucking wrestlers of all time. Obviously, anyone in the Armstrong family, and we have 2 of them here. How Brad Armstrong consistently got saddled with goofy under the hood gimmicks is beyond
right, dude. Like, he's so good. Like I did feel like his actual in-ring work was the best part of this match. Bar none.
It was great. The rules are wacky, which didn't sit well with me, and they waited so long that it might as well have just been a single elimination, or not single elimination. Might as well have just been like we win when we win kind of thing.
Yeah.
The match didn't suit the market yet again. I did say the finisher was fucking dope. That bulldog with the drop kick to get him out of the way. Like that was cool good. Still only got 2.5 beers for me though. Yeah.
It definitely was not match of the night. Speaking of not match of the night here, let's jump back over to Invasion, and it's Raven versus William Regal. Man, I really had high expectations for this one when I saw it on the card. And it wasn't necessarily a bad match, but it wasn't as good as the match before it. And it felt like their chemistry and their timing was just way off. And the finish was garbage. Yep. I mean, the finish really killed it. I gave it 1 solid beer, but I can't give it more than that. Where are you at on Raven versus William Regal?
I hate to hate this, but I do.
Yeah, me too. I
love both guys so much. The big problem, again, they both of these guys thrive on the crowd. The crowd really was not familiar with Raven. I mean, I know CW and his stint in WCW, but this crowd didn't give 2 shits about none of that. He had a long way to go with them. And Regal had been heel commissioner for fucking ever.
Yeah, so he's a haha guy, and he tried to have like a real match. Like at this point, he's just a haha guy.
And like Regal's capable of doing both of those things at once. However, not when the crowd doesn't give a fuck about either participant. And also, they had him follow that fucking segment with Tori and Stacy, and I'm sorry, but them's hard bra and panties to fill, dude.
Yeah.
That ain't gonna happen all that easy. The Taz run in was a fucking waste. I hated it.
Yes.
I get what they were doing. They're trying to make people care about the match later in the show. They didn't have to do that. They could have left it out. It would have been just fucking fine. I don't blame the talent for this, and I hate to say it. It was the booking and the writing, but I gave it a dud.
A whole dud. Wow. Whole dud. I mean, I gave it 1 beer, but yeah, let's just keep it moving here. We'll go back over to Great American Bash. It's Johnny B. Bad versus the Yellow Dog. Yeah, man. My goodness. This show sucks, guys.
Yep.
This show is not a goodie by any means. All that gaga and a bullshit for just a DQ finish, too. I gave it -1 beer. Where are you at on Johnny B. Bad versus the Yellow Dog?
I love seeing the pair of Johnny B. Bad and Teddy Long. It's always going to crack me. It's just one of those things. But the Yellow Dog idea was so bad that commentary has to continuously give away. It's like Mr. America. They just have to constantly fucking remind you who it was. Yeah. I will say Mero dove into this fucking gimmick, dude. Like, you got to give him credit from going Golden Gloves boxer to getting what you have to assume is a lucrative contract with WCW to meeting Dusty Rhodes, who tells him, "You look kind of like Little Richard." And then that's just it. That's just what he gets.
Yeah, now you're Little Richard, yeah.
And then his finish is a fucking left hand. Like, what?
Yeah.
None of it made sense.
You throw that wild left, baby. They'll never see it coming. You just throw that wild left in there. That'll be the end of it. 1, 2, 3, lights out for him, baby.
Fucking awful. It was sloppy movement throughout. The shit gimmicks. Crowd was flat. I gave it 0 beers, dude.
Yeah, I mean, 0 I feel like is generous at that point. I literally spit my beer back out into my pint glass. And I went over to the next match on the card here, an Invasion, which is not any better, I can assure you of that. It's the McMahons with, well, it's actually just Vince with the Brothers of Destruction in the back, and it's kind of a hokey promo. Not really much to touch on, although we'll get to it later on the card. But yeah, the match here is Billy Gunn, Big Show, and Albert, the Intercontinental Champion, by the way. How first of all, how fucking dare you? Secondly, like, okay, against Sean Stasiak, Canyon, and Hugh Morris. Whew, the hits just keep on coming, man. I mean, if this isn't the most, like, plug in No Mercy and just hit random, and this is what you get, it was, I don't know, it was bad, generic, cluttered, not good in any way. A dud from me. Where are you at on this awkward 6-man generated match?
Why you would try and fit 6-man tag with 0 time like this is kind of beyond me in a way. To me, the entire purpose of this was to watch the WWF dudes hit their finishes throughout and watch the crowd pop so they could continuously set up WWF to be the faces in the main event. To me, that was the entire point. They did pull that off. The crowd popped like a motherfucker for the famous or during the match, and the post-match shenanigans, they were all there for the choke slams and shit. Yeah. Like, they loved it. I will say it's funny to me that both Albert and Hugh Morris wound up being longtime trainers for the company following this. And I really wish I could have seen, for me, I could watch Chris Kanyon matches all day. I really wish that he had just gotten a little bit of a better slot on this card, in this Invasion role, the whole fucking 9. I did give it half a beer just for the crowd manipulation and what they did to bolster the main event storyline, but that's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, it really did feel like maybe they're just trying to get guys on the card here too, and trying to make it feel more of a team thing. But yeah, I mean, I think they missed the mark with it either way. Speaking of missing the mark, man, again, the hits just keep on rolling. Bischoff pretty much like totally skeezes in on Missy Hyatt, and it's so long and awkward that it's like, no, this is you're just a skis ball. Like, there's nothing like.
Dude, what's even better, they obviously shoehorn in the mention of Jason Hervey, who's Bischoff's very long time, very good friend, who is in the Wonder Years and had some kind of production role or some kind of investment role or something, who in real life was seeing Missy Hyatt at that time. And I'm like, this whole thing seems really masturbatory to me.
Yeah, like, it really is. It really is, for sure. I mean, this is well before Bischoff has any kind of power in WCW, but either way, just very strange. And the match itself is Big Josh versus Black Blood and a lumberjack match. So this is like when you had a Super Nintendo and you played like those off-brand pro wrestling games and you auto-generated. This is what you would play. Like, oh God, 0 absolute dud for me. How I don't understand how it gets any more silly than this. It's like Chop City the entire match. They're just chopping each other. It was, and then the whole heel versus babyface like lumberjack situation, just awful. What do you think about Big Josh versus Blackblood?
So before the match, as the entrances were occurring, I was like, I'm calling it before the bell. It's a dud. Then I watched the thing. Obviously had to Google who the fuck Blackblood was, and it's our good old crazy ass fucking friend, Mr. Billy Jack Haynes, who's since turned into a roving lunatic. They at some point Big Josh does this like Dragon Ball push, and I'm literally just sitting here by myself in my house, high as a bat's ass, cackling because it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And like the cameras are just absolute bullshit the entire show, which I meant to mention before, but in this match it particularly stood out. They kept on calling it the scaffold cam when they would go up high, and I was like, guys, I know you have nothing to work with here, but come on.
They're trying.
This is the second time that a German suplex was called a belly to back, which I thought was interesting. And then I wound up giving it a beer for one reason and one reason alone. Billy Jack Haynes reared up and threw a fucking axe over his head as though he was going to swing it at this man. And the crowd is like kind of into it and wondering if it's about to happen. And I'm like, this is peak bullshit. Like, this man is holding a fucking axe, y'all.
An actual axe that could legitimately decapitate a human being.
And then we see Booker Man's son, Mr. Dustin Rhodes, come to the save with an axe handle, which causes Big Josh to get the win. I had to give it a 1 just because this kept me belly laughing the entire time.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I thought okay. Well, I thought it was trash. Let's keep on moving over here to WWF Invasion. It's Booker T and Shane getting hype in the back in a promos together, and I thought that was actually really good. I love like super skeezy hype man Shane of the early 2000s. I feel like that's almost like my favorite version of Shane. But yeah, dude, it was solid. And then the little Regal Tajiri hype up promo was good. It was well done. The match, however, not so much. And again, I like another match on paper. I was like, oh, this will be pretty good. I thought, and then like the open was good. There was a quick paced open, and then like Taz just kind of poured on the heat, and then it was you could tell that like this match was way overproduced by whoever was assigned to be their agent. Like they were told what to do. It felt very much like a TV WWF match where it's like little shine in the open, Taz pours on the heat, Tajiri gets his comeback, he hits the green mist for the win. Like, that's all that happened. You didn't get to see Taz be Taz. You didn't really get to see Tajiri be Tajiri even. Like, they didn't really even get a lot of their like major spots in. It was just kind of there. I don't know. I gave it a half a beer. Where are we at on it?
Yeah, we differ. I remember thinking that the matchup was odd even when the pay-per-view initially aired, because both of these guys were initially so ECW, but both of them came over long before any of the change happened. Right. Like, so I remember thinking like, this is a strange one. This worked for me, man. I do think Tajiri got his shit in. I mean, he got the tarantula, he got the buzzsaw elbow, he got the mist, he got the fucking kick at the end. Like, there's not a lot of other shit he needed to get in. I thought it did a really good job of putting him over as, you know, the underdog babyface. And while Taz didn't get his stuff in, he still did look like a little powerful bulldog motherfucker. And not that that's difficult to do against a guy like Tajiri necessarily, but I don't know. It worked for me. It was short for my taste, but I thought the work was really stiff. I thought it looked good. Got Tajiri over. I gave it 3 beers, man.
3 beers?
I did.
Good Lord. Maybe I need to go back and watch the match again, too, because to me, I was just like mindlessly watching the match, and I was like, this is not. Like, I don't know. I just felt like they weren't. The crowd was dead for it for sure. Yeah, the crowd was not interested into them at all.
Now, at the end, the crowd did pop like a motherfucker for Tajiri, which, you know, with the mist gimmick and that whole thing, they're going to. But, like, I thought that, and maybe that misled me in terms of, like, what it did for him. But at the same time, it made me think, like, we just endeared that guy in their eyes, which the crowd really needed at this point because they've really been kind of fed a pile of shit.
Yeah, I agree. Well, speaking of piles of shit, back here on the Great American Bash Show, it's Sullivan and One Man Gang halfway up the entrance ramp doing a promo, all gothed up, and it's really bad. It's a bad promo. It made no sense. Kevin Sullivan maybe he had too much PCP or whatever, because he was like so he was cutting an Ultimate Warrior promo. It was
we're
so
not
out there.
words there at all.
Yeah, there were no coherent sentence at all. Either way, it's one man gang versus El Gigante. Is that what it is?
El Gigante.
Elegante. Yeah, the giant Gonzalez, or, the man Sasquatch or whatever. It was trash. It was worse than trash. It went on forever. It was gutter trash. -2 beers for me. What do you think about one man gang versus giant Gonzalez?
Dude, you can't tell me that if you turn this match on at any given bar randomly that everybody is not going to fucking just roll laughing the entire fucking time. I mean, like...
Yeah, but I don't know.
That's what this show did for me, which is why... And I did give it a dud, but still, I mean, obviously it's a shit match. But, like, just the imagery of El Gigante coming out with those midgets who are, like, biting at the ass of one man gang. Like, there's something... Just the whole fucking cavalcade of that in my little Southern wrestling heart worked wonders for me. There, like,
yeah,
just, and Gang looks like a fucking Motley Crue super fan at a 20-year reunion or some shit. Like, I don't know what was going on with his gimmick. Like, that, he needs to have the mohawk here. He just looked like somebody really was like, all right, you're Gang today. And, it was pretty bad. Gigante is so awkward the whole fucking time. Him when he starts to go over and he's swinging his arms and has that look on his face and shit, I'm like, it was just so bad. The powder finish I thought was kind of fun. Still, Dudleyville, no beers.
Yeah, no beers. It was negative beers for me. Finally, we get a breath of fresh air, and this is going to be my match of the night on this card for Invasion for sure. It's we got a little segment in the back with the Hardys and RVD. RVD doing the heel thing, coming in with the chair and getting that sympathy on Jeff. It's for the Hardcore Championship, and it's an absolute classic, man. A solid match. I feel like this really put RVD on the map as a WWF guy, and I feel like this is the match that people were like, okay, yeah, like I know he already had like an IC title run. I know he's had a couple other like little singles things, but like to me, Jeff Hardy was still Jeff from the Hardy Boys until this match happened, and it was really, really, really good. I was a DVD collector, but I always collected like the bios, like the Mr. Perfect DVDs and that kind of thing. But like DVD is one of the only like just pay-per-views that I owned, and the only match that I watched regularly was this match. This is around the time that I really wanted to be a wrestler, and like this match specifically, I studied as a student. Like I loved everything about this. I wanted to do all these things. I have none of the athletic ability to do any of this stuff, but I tried really hard. Definitely stole the show for me. 5 beers all the way. What did you think about RVD versus Jeff Hardy here?
It's so funny you say that, because I remember the minute I could get a hold of this DVD, I did. And this particular match was kind of the one where I perfected the use of the slow-mo button on the DVD player, like step by step, just watching some of the aerial stuff and stopping at the right time to be like, what the fuck? And I probably did that hundreds of times. I mean, I was already a huge RVD mark and already a huge Jeff Hardy mark, but you're 110% right. I mean, this was a different step for them.
Yeah.
Maybe the best hardcore title match ever.
Probably.
I mean, for fuck's sake, I kind of forgot that was even on the line, but because it didn't matter. I mean, the level of momentum and just the energy that these two brought to the table was so staunchly different from anything else on this show. And the crowd could tell. I mean, them going into the crowd, RVD's spots had not been overexposed at this point. And still, I'm not saying that necessarily even that they are now. I'm just saying, like, this was all very brand new to WWF audiences still.
It's very fresh,
And everybody was just popping for everything. Hardy's sunset flip into the powerbomb to the floor was
insane.
Such an unforgettable spot.
Yeah.
This match is also responsible for very many JR sound bites that would live in opening packages for years on years on years to come.
Yeah.
The Van Daminator that sends Jeff Hardy off the ramp was fucking badass. I mean, you could name spots for days. The finish was great, I thought. They super, super sold the 5-star, crushing it.
Yeah.
I gave it 5 beers as well. I hate that we're agreeing so much, honestly, but like, it's just this match was the reason I always loved this show in hindsight. And if you see what it did for both of these guys moving forward, I mean, it's impossible to argue how important this really was to kind of saving a lot of this show.
For sure. Yeah.
In this period of time,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially bell to bell, especially work rate wise, especially for a live crowd putting on a show in the ropes. You know what I mean? Because like when you're there, it's like you're not. I mean, sure, you're seeing the promos on the big screen, but it's not the same as when you're watching it on pay-per-view. And a lot of the show felt like a pay-per-view show and not so much a live show until this match. Like this match was whatever. I mean, I know it's pretty much kind of almost mid card or upper mid card, but it's the main event in my opinion. I thought it was definitely match of the night, probably match of the night overall.
Yeah,
but
I have to agree. I would also say too, this is where we transcend. They were doing like two heels on two heels on two heels, and heel team against heel team, and yada yada yada, and the crowd didn't know where to go. In this one, none of that shit mattered, and both of them were face, no matter what they wanted to do. The crowd didn't give two fucks. They were just into it the whole time, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I agree. And then speaking of match of the night for me, I'm going to jump over here to the Great American Bash. We got a package for Nikita Koloff and Sting. And it's the best thing on the show so far. Even just that package, the production package looked better than any of the other production things they had done thus far. And the match itself here is a Russian chain match, which is essentially a strap match, but it was really good. I mean, the crowd was behind it. There's an actual storyline there, very well put together in the ring, bell to bell. Sting and Nikita had proven chemistry for sure. I mean, because both participants, I feel like most of the time kind of need, another partner to have great matches. But these guys held it on their own. I thought they did I was pleasantly surprised by this. I thought it was really good. I think the gimmick actually helped the match be good too, because they weren't having to put on a Matt Classic. I thought the finish was really good. Yeah, man, match of the night definitely for me. But I still gave it 4 beers total. Wasn't the best thing I'd ever seen, but definitely match of the night. Where are you at on Nikita versus Sting here?
Man, I gave it 3.5.
There we go. Yeah.
Again, we're in the deal here. Yeah. I did not expect for this to be great. I kind of expect, Sting is high charisma, low technicality type of dude, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Pull off all brutality, all facials, all, that whole thing. But they really brought it, man. Both guys they put in a lot of work. There's a lot of brawling and a lot of things to the outside, but it all was done in a way that made sense, and it didn't seem like they were trying to hide anything. Like it all seemed very genuine. This match also takes the cake for my favorite commentary line of the night between both shows, which was uttered by Mr. Jim Ross, who said, "I've never seen two men touch simultaneously." And I thought that was fucking hilarious. I
missed that.
It was during the finish. It was like while they were hitting the buckles at the same time.
Of course it was during the finish.
I think it was on the third one or something. But that finish too, I mean, for a strap/chain, whatever fucking tied together match, like that finish was hyper creative. I thought it was really well done. And
yes, yeah,
it didn't go where they were leading you to think that Sting was going to end up coming out of it with Venom and be the guy to make the last touch, and they gave it to Nikita, and I thought it was fucking great. The crowd also spoke volumes on this one. Yeah,
absolutely. Speaking of the crowd speaking volumes about something, let's jump over here to the next match on the card. It's McMahon and Angle in the back with a promo. Angle did a pretty good job of trying to look like a badass. I think this is actually the beginning of the end of his comedy run with Stone Cold, and he's going to try to move back into that wrestling machine vibe, which is great. But the match here is Stacey and Tori versus Trish and Lita in a bra and panties match. And I mean, okay, so as a grown-up with like kids and shit, I can say that it's a shock value thing. It's not a match at all. It's pretty much exploitation. But I will say, when I was, 14 in 2001 when this show happened? Maybe 15, somewhere around in there.
I was 15, about to turn 16. I was.
Yeah, okay. So I was probably 15 or 16. This is a 18 beer match for me, man. I mean, I was all about it in 2001. So that being said, I gave it 2 solid beers against my better judgment, just because I was like, look, me as a person now, this was trash. But I tried to put myself in the time, what was happening. And dude, they had a TV 14 rating. This is what they're pushing, and it delivered what it said it was going to deliver on. So, they booked it well, I guess. Jesse, what do you think about this bra and panties match?
You just want to talk about Mick Foley just having the best jobs in the world.
Best job ever.
Yeah, like
he only had to throw himself off buildings, but
it's just great. You know what I mean? Like, he earned it, but this is pretty stellar. The 5-minute match, babies are over. It all makes sense. this one, in my opinion, I got to give them credit. It was perfectly placed for the crowd to go absolutely fucking banana. Like, so into it. Now, Lita, at this point in time, Trish is still pretty green, and Lita is definitely the only worker in this match. Yeah. And even that was still could be awkward.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
She carried what little work existed, but all four, they all tried, though. I mean, if you watch Tori and Stacy, they're both trying to. They just didn't have any fucking training, you know?
For sure. And all of these women got better, by the way, including Stacy and Tori. They did get better. Not saying they got great, but they got better.
They did. And I for all of those reasons, and just listen, if you just listen to the crowd alone, just that audio, it's fucking impressive. I gave it 2.5 beers. Yeah. I thought, again, it was placed fucking perfectly, and you got to give it to him, man. I mean, there wasn't a dude on the fucking crowd popped harder than this than they did for anything else. I mean, like, at least up to then.
Yeah, I agree. Let's jump back over here to the Great American Bash, and we get not the main event somehow, but it's Barry Windham versus Lex Luger for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. It's a cage match as well. I thought this was a pretty classic WCW style main event. I think Wyndham carried Luger to a pretty good match. It wasn't a Matt Classic, but it was significantly better than I expected. It might be Luger's peak in the ring, to be honest, which is crazy to think about how long he wrestled after this. And Harley Race definitely added to it. I thought it was well booked. I thought it was well done. I gave it 3.5 beers, 3 3/4 beers. 3.75 is where I'm at. I was pleasantly surprised by Barry Windham versus Lex Luger. What did you think about it?
The package was very clearly the last minute, no build. We're trying to find excuses for this.
Yes, totally.
And like the jacked up cage with the pyro going off where they had it like unevenly hung. Yeah. That was something else. I was kind of like, Jesus fuck. Like somebody, let the other
side don't get burned.
Pretty gnarly. This is another case of when you have a gimmick heavy show, this is going to happen, but the announce team is forced to run long to make up for the changeover. And instead of somebody planning it accurately to like cut to the back or have longer packages or whatever the fuck they could have done, they literally just leave it on JR and Shivani for the longest time to sit there and try and be like, well, Luger and Barry Windham. And, and like they're trying to remember what the fuck's going on because there's no lead in. Yeah. So that played against it a little bit. Barry Windham's name is misspelled on the lower third in the entrance. They left out the H, so they obviously had faith in him to be in their World Heavyweight Championship fight.
Definitely.
Also, same hair color, same tight color, and cowboy boots as Dustin Rhodes. I think that was a bad play. That's just me, little nitpicky guy here, being like, you just prominently featured Dustin Rhodes twice on the same card, and he kind of looks the same. But I have to agree, though. The match bell to bell, had this been for just the U.S. title, I think people would have walked away from this show talking about this match for a very
long time. 100%. I 100% agree,
very well worked match. It was something up against the circumstances. The Baltimore thing certainly didn't help. The crowd chants of "We want Flair" certainly didn't help. You have to give it to commentary for not selling that. I mean, they did a really
I agree.
They did not give in. And I love the idea. Obviously, Luger's going to win this. I mean, they're not going to put the strap on Wyndham here. But, like, the idea of turning him heel in the wake of not having Flair, I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't know their long game. Maybe right. But like, it seemed like a mistake. I do like the involvement of Harley and stuff if they're going to do it, but it just seemed like that wasn't the wisest thing. I did give it 3 beers. The bell to bell was solid. Yeah. I didn't love the heel turn, but honestly, the match was really fucking good. And if this had been on a less stipulation heavy card, I think it would have also played to its favor.
Yeah, I agree fully. But at the same time, too, I do also think that this should have been the main event. But we'll get to that match shortly. Let's jump over to the main event of WWF Invasion, though. We got an awesome Heyman promo in the back with the Alliance, giving them all the hype. And we got, Austin and McMahon as well, which was delivered. And then we have the match here, and it's the Dudleys and Rhino and Booker T and DDP versus the Brothers of Destruction, which is Kane and the Undertaker, Jericho, Angle, and Austin. I mean, it's an absolute car crash, nothing but a brawl. Another way to kind of get all the quote-unquote stars from each side, but it wasn't great because there's just too many bodies, and it was forever long. And then Stone Cold betraying WWF, to me, it's like at this point you're already teasing that he's turning babyface again. He's like, oh, the old Stone Cold's back or whatever. And this whole show you've been pushing WWF as the babyface. It makes so much more sense for him to like, win for WWF and then stun the rest of his team and stun, you know what I mean? Like then just be the babyface again and drink a bunch of beer and that's how the show goes off the air. Like I feel like that makes way more sense. But you're really still trying to push this Stone Cold as a heel. And I feel like even now, like it's been almost 6 months at this point. Like, it's not working. You know what I mean? Like, it's not working. Why? I don't know. For me, it wasn't the worst. I gave it 2.5 beers total. What do you think about this main event?
Once again, we're far off. For a 10-man tag as the main event in this card, I felt was going to be snake bit from the gate. And the only real wild card in terms of star power here is Rhino. And I understand why they included him. He's last ECW champion, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But that's the one the crowd would have known by far the least.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And the gore was over, but that was really about it. Everybody else had a little bit much. But that also positions him to be used in a pretty decent way. That should have set him up well here. It didn't long term, but it did for a little while. The crowd was absolutely electric for any little thing that Austin touched. It didn't matter what the fuck he did. I thought, given the 10-man tag element, they got all the star power out. They got the crowd to a fucking raging boil of fucking just wild electricity. They were loud for everything. In my opinion, they did a really good job of how they eliminated everybody. Like sending Undertaker and DDP out and in the brawl, continuing that storyline to get them out of the way. A couple of different weird table things that set guys out. But they, again, made sense with storylines that would later on play out. Selling Austin's like bum knee thing and having like people coming to check on him.
That was good. Like that was good, yeah.
And then you set it up for this whole situation where it's like pretty much just Angle and Booker left. And, it's like not – you don't really know what's going to happen, but everybody feels like it's Angle. And then Austin makes the turn. I didn't dislike that. I thought that it was actually very important to the show and to the Angle. If they hoped to even get a month out of this past this pay-per-view, something very important had to go down. Austin did turn heel just earlier this year, which was 3 months prior?
Yeah, I guess so.
But he turned heel at that point in time seemingly for Vince. So as Vince is begging for the old Austin and doing all this stuff to try and keep him on Team WWF and all of a sudden his fucking thing's in jeopardy and whatever, it's like you would think that he would be on Vince's side given that storyline. Turning heel on Vince is a different element to it. Also, in my opinion, grossly unexpected. I do not think anybody was looking for it.
Yeah.
I thought the team dynamic was logically booked for that many fucking guys. And you give Booker a win, which was a very sorely needed thing to put him in the build. Now, granted, it wasn't his fault that he got the cover, but at the same time, he still got the 3 count. And he got to run his mouth about that for months on end and get taken into a much higher place on the card because of it. I thought the beer bath afterwards, soaking Vince with JR screaming, why was classic shit. I gave it 5 fucking beers, dude. I really thought
5 beers.
I really thought that it was going to be. I thought it was going to sink the show, and it needed to anchor the whole thing. And I feel like ultimately it fucking did. I really do.
Oh my goodness! I'm
apart on it.
I am so speechless. How can you? Dude, 5 beers? 5
I thought it was fucking great.
All right. Tell me what was your rating for RVD and Jeff Hardy again?
5.
This was the same level of good as that match.
I felt like that in a different way, yes.
Oh, my God.
Bell to bell? Fuck no. But if you take the booking into account and how many opportunities there were.
I mean, I didn't. Maybe it's all because of hindsight, but everything you said from the Undertaker DDP storyline was always trash to me. It was never good. I don't think those guys should have ever been put together. I kind of see what you're saying. I see what you're saying that from a fresh, if you're watching this as a fresh product, you see they are trying to further this storyline. They're trying to further Stone Cold as a heel. They're putting these guys in good positions. The Dudleys got shine. Booker T gets a win. I understand all of that, but knowing where it went, I'm like, oh, this is the worst idea. It's almost like watching them mess up again. It's like maybe it's just my juvenile mind where you watch the same movie 1,000 times, and every now and then you're just like, what if Marty just doesn't go back to the future? What is that movie like? You know what I mean?
For
that's
me,
kind of
I'm trying to watch it in the vacuum if I can.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I get that. Okay, that makes sense.
And from looking at it, it's like, yeah, on paper, a 10-man tag is going to blow all the dicks. It's going to be terrible. But in my opinion, for what it was, I thought it was very well booked.
Well, let's see what you thought about this main event then on the other side. They actually made this the main event somehow. It's Arn Anderson and Paul E. Dangerously versus Rick Steiner and Missy Hyatt. How is this not match number 3 on the fucking card? Like, what is happening, man? Like, that's crazy to me. Why do you need this match after the world title match? I think it's so dumb. I think it immediately devalues your title that you just had your actual world champion leave the company, and the world title isn't even the main event for your new world champion. Instead, Missy Hyatt's in the mix. What is happening here? WCW, man.
I guess I think that they probably at this point in time, the guys that were holding the book had more faith in Arn and more faith in Rick than they did anybody else. But I mean, this match certainly doesn't fucking prove it if you look at how they executed it and what it looked like.
And they had, 5 minutes? Maybe. This whole match was maybe like, I mean, not including entrances, like bell to bell time, 5 minutes time.
I felt like it was like 2, man. I felt like it was like I felt like there was nothing to it. I mean, like when Slater and Murdoch came out and like basically but very inappropriately manhandled Missy Hyatt out of there immediately.
And Rick Steiner is he just chilling? Like, did he not just walk down there with him?
He was happy about it. He was like taunting everybody. And I'm like, shouldn't you be worried about your fucking female partner who basically just got torn apart by 2 very large, fat, greasy men? Like, that's like kind of should you be running after her and trying to save her? She's your fucking partner, bro.
I mean, now that I think about it, didn't she end up becoming like part of the Dangerous Alliance? Like, maybe there was some storyline leading up to that, and she was like, Rick Steiner was booked into a corner. I'm not sure.
Maybe, but he didn't look like that here. You know, it was just very, it was a very different situation for me here. I mean, like,
goose egg.
I gave it 0, dude. Yeah, for sure, of course. But it was just one of those things where it's like, the crowd was hyped to see Missy Hyatt too, and they gave her
for sure.
They gave him 20 seconds of it, and most of it was like very uncomfortable to watch in 2021. I thought Arn and Rick worked really great together for about 30 seconds. There were a couple of things that I was like, oh shit, this is really awesome. And then it was just like, done. And, in all caps, the very last of my notes for the entirety of the show is why close with this? I mean,
why close with this, especially when like JR and Tony talk for like 20 minutes at the end of the show? Like,
fill that satellite time, brother.
Yeah, but then why not why not let Rick work and with Arn?
I don't understand it. I don't know. I mean, I think the show is just poorly timed. I think their staff sucked. I think this is a classic example of many reasons why WCW wound up just faltering until eventually when Bischoff did take over and it got hot for a few years. But I mean, it's very clear why this was the down period. And and the down period would continue to last for some time.
It really would. I mean, I feel like it's a handed, easy win here in this kayfabe comparison. I'm glad that we did watch Great American Bash. It's crazy because there's a bunch of like weird, wonky stuff on here. Like, I mean, the scaffold match alone, the chain match against, Sting and Koloff is worth seeing for sure. I didn't mind the Wyndham Luger match. If you're watching it in a vacuum to watch it as a wrestling match, it wasn't bad. But I mean, come on, dude. Listen, we got the Landstorm, Mike Awesome versus Edge and Christian surprise, which was really good. I thought the Gaga of Hebner and Patrick was great. X-Pock and Kidman was a great bell-to-bell match. You enjoyed Taz and Tajiri quite a bit. I enjoyed RVD and Jeff Hardy quite a bit. You liked that main event. I feel like I will say that I do honestly think that 2001 is one of the hottest years of WWF history, and I think that this might be at least the top 2 or 3 greatest 2001 pay-per-views. You know what I mean? I think this is top 2 or 3 best pay-per-views of 2001.
I'm with you. And, maybe that's something we need to run down eventually, figure out what that list really looks like. But yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of, let's get to what we got coming up here in the coming weeks. We'll have Mr. Wex breaking the Lawson back with us next week. It's an all current product show. We know you guys enjoy those a lot. We got a spike in downloads and we appreciate all of those. We got Slammiversary 2021 versus Money in the Bank 2021. What can you tell me about this, man?
Slammiversary. I gotta say, I know a lot of people that do watch Impact. I especially do. I don't necessarily catch it live every time, but I do watch it every week, and I'm a big fan of a lot of the talents that they have in it. I feel like this card may stand to surprise a whole lot of fucking people. Slammiversary this Saturday, July 17th, emanating from Skyway Studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. Available on all your favorite little pay-per-view outlets and all that fun stuff.
Nice.
We have a grudge match with Eddie Edwards and Captain Gas himself, W. Morrissey, a.k.a. Big Kaz. We have
Big
Moose. Big Kaz. We have Moose versus Chris Sabin. Fire and Flava versus Havoc and Rosemary. A 4-way World Tag Team Championship match. Violent by Design. Rich Swann and Willie Mack, who, come on, man, they're great.
Yeah.
TJP and Falaba and the Good Brothers. We have an Impact X Division Ultimate X match that's a 6-way for the championship.
Nice.
Ace Austin, Rohit Raju, Petey Williams, Chris Bay, Trey Miguel, and current champion Josh Alexander. You cannot tell me that match isn't going to bang.
Wow.
We have the Knockouts Championship, current champion Deonna Purrazzo versus a mystery opponent.
Ooh.
Guesses have abound about who that might be. We do know that WWE recently let Chelsea Green out of her non-compete to debut at Ring of Honor, so it's not going to be her. That was a running favorite from what I understand. It may not even be a debut. It may just be a surprise of somebody who's already there, who fucking knows, but I'm very curious as to who it might be. And then for the Impact World Championship, and seeing the build to this is what made me believe in it. At first, I thought it was underwhelming, but the current Impact World Champion, Kenny Omega versus Sami Callihan. The build has been fucking stellar so far.
Ooh, okay. All right. I don't think he's the guy. I think Kenny retains, but
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a Sami Callihan guy in the ring, honestly. I don't like his work. I think he's actually kind of entertaining on the mic sometimes, but I don't know. I'm just not a fan of that one. What do we have on the Money in the Bank card coming up? Do you know?
So we've got. I don't think this is the entirety of the matches that have been announced, and if it's not, I
mean, it's WWE.
More,
you know,
there are going to be more to come. We have the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which is Asuka, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, who now is a superhero gimmick going under Nikki Ash, which I do not get. Liv Morgan, 2 as yet undetermined spots, at least at the time of my reading this, and the returning Zelina Vega.
Okay, cool.
I really wish would be the one to take it. I doubt that's how it's going to happen, but we shall see. The Raw Women's Championship, current standing champion Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. First day with the new mouth, Charlotte Flair. That's always going to be a banger. It's always going to be a good match. The Universal Championship, Roman Reigns versus Edge.
Nice. Yeah.
Here for it. The WWE Championship, Bobby Lashley versus Kofi Kingston.
Okay. Right.
Seeing some of the build clips from Raw, I do think that that's going to be a good one as well. Yeah. I believe that there might be a SmackDown Women's Championship match. It's not announced in here. The last I heard, it was going to be Bianca and Carmella was what they were talking about, because Bayley got a 9-month-long injury of some kind. And then you have the Money in the Bank men's ladder match. And I got to tell you, this is something that I very much like the Ultimate X match, I really think that this has all the potential in the world. It is Daniel's favorite, Seth Rollins.
Yes.
Shinsuke Nakamura.
Okay.
Big E.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre, which is clearly the sore thumb here.
Yeah.
Riddle.
Okay.
John Morrison.
All right.
Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
And Ricochet.
Oh, nice. I thought Sami Zayn was going to be that last one, but okay. Okay, Ricochet.
I have not watched it yet. I plan to watch it after we record tonight, but apparently Ricochet and John Morrison had a fucking banger on Raw last night.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So,
that's good to know.
It's
I'll check that out as well.
It's a promising lineup for a WWE pay-per-view. I think Slammiversary is also a promising lineup for an Impact pay-per-view. I look forward to weighing the two against each other, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a show. It's going to be a hell of a show for sure. And then 2 weeks from now, I'm really excited about this. We're about halfway through the calendar year for us, as far a little over halfway. But we're definitely going to be looking back at a 20-year comparison. But we're going to be talking about, the storylines in 2001 versus the storylines in 2021. And we're going to be covering kind of all the bases. It's going to be all over the place, kind of talking about 2001, that picture, the last days of WCW, WWF being on fire, the last days of ECW. And we're also going to be talking about, 2021 coming out of a pandemic with the WWE. By that time too, we'll actually get to see a big pay-per-view with, a lot of fans in the crowd for Slammiversary and Money in the Bank. I'm excited about that for sure. So it's gonna be weird, and like I'm really excited to like just cover like the first half of 2001 versus the first half of 2021 because I can see a lot of similarities there.
Absolutely, man. I mean, they're both very interesting wrestling landscapes. And, as a fan, it's always going to be. But these are two very particular years in that 2001 saw the end of a couple of different eras and the beginning of a completely different kind of era in the WWF-owned monopoly of professional wrestling that would eventually lead to, like, the death of the indies for a long time. I mean, obviously they existed, but they just, no one cared. The build to TNA, all that fun stuff, a lot of meat on the bone there. And we're seeing the very beginning of it right here. And then the beginning of 2021, coming out of the pandemic, I wouldn't say that all of the indies are just as hot as they were before the shutdown. But, man, you got a lot of places that boys can work, girls can work. You got a lot of AEW activity that is unprecedented in terms of I hesitate to even say competition, just a different product. Yeah. And Impact has a major standing TV deal. MLW is making a bunch of moves. I mean, there's a lot of
Honor. Ring of Honor. I mean, rumor has it there's going to be a lot of new releases that are going to Ring of Honor. I haven't watched Best in the World yet, but I do plan on buying it. I'm going to watch it. I have every intention of it. I heard it was an awesome show.
It was absolutely great, top to bottom, dude. I got interested in the pre-show, and I was just at my house, not really doing much, and all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I'm watching this fucking show, and and it did not disappoint. I had a really great time watching it. The Pure Championship match in particular between Mike Bennett and Jonathan Gresham was one of the better things I've seen in professional wrestling in a really long time. Now, I think if they stick to that division and highlighting the kind of talent that they have been, that they have a huge future.
Nice. I love that, man. I love Mike Bennett. I'm glad he's getting some shine. I feel like it's going to wrap it up for us, though, boys and girls. You can always find the show at KayfabeCom on all your socials, except for TikTok, where we do our match of the week every week. It's on TikTok. We are at KayfabeCom Pod because Wex is an asshole. Get well soon, Wex. Jesse, where can people find you, man?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jesse Baker Nash. You can find me on Facebook at regular old Jesse Baker. I'm proud to say that I'm curating a series for Nashville's venerable music forum, the Exit Inn, called 50 for 50. It is commemorating 50 years of Exit Inn's existence. It's an independently, locally loved, owned, and operated music venue. We started the tail end of July. We commemorate with the Proto Men, just announced on New Year's Eve. And between then, we'll do 50 shows, some at the club, some at other venerable Nashville venues. It's going to be a citywide celebration. Lots of reunion shows, lots of bigger names lending a hand. We will donate a portion of proceeds to Music Venue Alliance Nashville, and Exit In will have venue merch available at all events. And I am fucking stoked.
Yeah, man, it sounds awesome. I'm super pumped. Hopefully, maybe... one of my little projects will have a chance to hop on one of those shows, and we'll announce that later on down the road. But you know what, boys and girls, that's going to do it for us this week. We'll see you guys all next week with Slammiversary versus Money in the Bank. We're out. Peace.